Commissioner Wilson to present her report.
Yes, and I think Miles hopefully had, oh, there it is. Thank you. You all hopefully had a chance to take a look at the memo. There are just some things that I wanted to add supplementally to that, and then wanted to make a request. I don't know. I'm going to apologize in advance for my technological difficulties. So I know that you've heard about Reams Road, if not from various applications that have come through our program here, but also on the news recently following both Ian and now Milton. There have been significant and persistent flooding problems. This is a very old aerial picture of the part of the affected area. So the intersection right here at Reams, Summer Lake, and Fiquette it is currently underwater still. I'm going to get to it in a minute. But what I want to point out is how this area in this picture, you can tell it is largely wetlands that have come up. You can tell like during a flood event or some kind of a high water table event that continues to get closer and closer to the edge of that road. That road was there, so there's no question about whether or not it was probably already affected by these types of weather events, but the development activity has exacerbated it. This shows you the basin where it overlays the road. So if you find Summer Lake and you move into Fiquette, and essentially Reams is largely in low-lying wet areas. This is how it looked within, I don't know, days of, I think, this meeting. We're still dealing with pretty bad conditions. Right after the storm, and with all, credit to Public Works, they were out there right away. They actually got out there ahead of time. They got pumps. They got with the State of Florida Emergency Management Division. They did everything in their power to try to prevent what ultimately happened anyway. And so what you're seeing right here is something called a Tiger Dam, and it was actually part of the State of Florida Emergency Management System. They brought it in and ran it along the area where the wetland here is trying to make a connection with the other side of the wetland across the road into Reedy Creek and then move on down the line. So this is moving water. The dam itself, I think, did a pretty decent job, and we'll continue to tell people that this area is passable. But the reality of it is that this water needed to go somewhere. So it did push it back out to the sides of where this Tiger Dam, or where that's located. And because it's flooded across the street and there's another, high water table basin there, the water's just on the street. And this is in several areas throughout Reams Road and specifically at that intersection. This is at the entrance and exit of the Disney employee parking lot. If you all recall, a few weeks ago, there was an application that came through for an apartment complex, and I said, oh my God, please don't do this. It's going to be underwater. It is literally underwater. So what, my concern was, as of even last week, people are hugging that center line in order to try to avoid the water. And so as a solution, Public Works removed the center blockade, which then now we're sort of playing chicken because people are just hugging that. And I spoke with an individual yesterday who lost their outside mirror to that game of chicken, and I'm glad it was just a mirror and not an arm or something worse. You can see the hubcap right there. The reports I'm getting from residents is that they're losing, big parts of their car. They're suffering severe damage of their car, their automobiles, property, but they're also being isolated. There are several residences where people can't even get out of their residence. So this, if you look at the date on this, it's October 10th. So this is with every mitigation thing that we had, all the tools in the toolbox available in effect. And you can tell that these cars are hugging that middle lane. Now, I would challenge you to take that on sometime after dark, but I like you all and I don't want you to do it. So it is very, very scary. One of the things that I would say here is that because it's passable, people are continuing to use it and to use the same speeds that they have always used it. and they oftentimes don't know what they're getting ready to get into. And so they get there, it's dangerous, they hug that middle, it's something perilous. This is, again, in front of the intersection where the Disney employee parking lot comes out, so it's high traveled. It's an employment center where those people have to come and go, right? They actually have to come and go. Yeah, this, just another example that you can, it's hard to even see the line on the road from the depth of the water. So this is that area that you just saw the other angle on that had the blockade. And then this is a lovely river, Reams Road. So you can tell this is wetland, right? And it's really trying to connect there. And unfortunately, over these last 5, 10, 15 years, there have been a number of mass clearings in the Lake Reams Basin. And despite, I think, best efforts by Orange County's engineering team into making sure that we're retaining enough water on site as per code, we are not seeing the on-site retention filled. So on-site retention for some of these is not filled, whereas the road continues to be submerged. This is actually pretty close to the site of the other project that came before us that we ultimately denied. And it is, if you were to walk out there, you would need waders on up to your chest. So it is very much underwater. And, you know, it's Mother Nature, right? She's trying to connect. This was a wetland. It was interrupted by the road. That's not our fault here, but we've got to figure out how to make sure that if we're adding people to this equation, that we're keeping them safe. So this is the data, the crash reports for Reams Road, and you'll see for a smaller sort of road that's used primarily right now by people going and coming from work, the residences that are on there, and really a lot of the construction activity that's happening in conjunction with approvals that happened even before I got here. So Fouquet Road is that the road that goes north from Reams Road. And then there had other safety issues, and this was something that I think is important, just because I know that we all sort of know our regions and our districts, and understanding that to add any of these variables continues to be a risk. So and actually I think we have the original timeline for Reams Road would have provided us in these last, instances, the storms, to really point out that we were in the midst of a permanent solution. What ended up happening was that, for a variety of reasons, and I believe Public Works is here to answer those questions, construction that would have been ongoing right now and finished in 26 is not ongoing. And in order to really see a final, I think, solution to the safety on the roadway here, we would need to get Reams Road and parts of it elevated, possibly bridged, Fouquet Road elevated, and so you can see, if you flip over on the back of this, the timeline here really has construction starting in fall of 24 and ending in fall of 26. And right now, the most updated, so this went out to those residents. This was a promise made. I know it's all subject to anything else that can happen, but if you live there and you were expecting this to start in 24, it did not happen. And then lo and behold, here we are. New newsletter comes out in 23 that says that the construction timeline is now pushed back, and the construction will not commence until 25. 27 is potentially, if all things go well, when we may have a resolution here. Now, the northern part, the Fouquet part of this particular area, is on the timeline earlier. So the completion of that will be earlier. But until we have some resolution to what is a very dangerous situation, my ask is that we have staff contribute some, possible options for us to do a construction activity moratorium unless the construction is affiliated with the required infrastructure needs. So what we're seeing is, large fill trucks and construction equipment moving into some of these areas to continue clear cutting for the purpose of adding additional people to a roadway that isn't safe for the people that live there right now. And so quite simply put, what I'd like to see from the board today, or ask of you today, is some feedback and consensus about a request for a work session in order for us to be able to suspend construction until we have some solution to the persistent flooding that has really affected even the underpinning of the road that is now coming up from the water is potholed and eroding on the side. So I will open it up for you all if you have questions for me or for Public Works. They had we spent a lot of time together yesterday, and they presented some their findings and thoughts for the future. And I believe that knowing that there is a future date known that we will have a solution, that it would be appropriate for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents there to put a pause on development activity until that solution is something that we can offer for their safety.
All right, I'm going to look to the county administrator. I know we got some very, very active, busy schedule and agendas coming up, but when can we perhaps lean into doing a work session and giving Public Works the time to do what they need to do to come back? And then on the surface, generally, I'm supportive of some type of temporary suspension, but I want to kind of understand from our team how long that suspension would be.
Can I get them to come up?
I don't know if
They
I want them
have
to
some
come up
information.
yet, but I'm just looking for a date for the work session.
Work session date. The January, was it January? I don't have my calendar in front of me. But I know you're November 19th. The next meeting is kind of like this. December 3rd is a half meeting. We have swearing in the morning. And then the last one of the year is yes, thank you. So January 7th, Mayor, would be that first opportunity for a work session.
And so I guess the question is, just logistically, does January 7th work? Does it need to be before then, Commissioner Wilson?
I would have liked it before that storm hit. I mean, you've heard me when these developments come forward. It is not hyperbole when I say, please consider that you're adding human lives to a place that we have such overburdened and underdeveloped infrastructure that I'm concerned. So I will, absolutely be supportive of moving forward when we can get this done. And just my ask of the county at large and all the departments, and, I talk to our law enforcement partners and to our fire rescue partners, is that we continue to really keep an eye on anything that's happening out there, any interim measures we can take. I think my concern with adding development activity is if we are adding more rock trucks and, large construction equipment that's not there for the road, because we're not doing that yet, that it does add a hazard. So, I just want to make you aware, I'm praying that we're going to have some dry weather ahead. But I know for sure that when they said, oh, don't worry, Ian was a once in 500-year thing, that was wrong, and that we were right back here. And so we just have to make sure that we sort this out before we get to storm season.
All right, so looks like the January 7th is what you said, Byron?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can accommodate January 7th.
So let's plan on doing the work session then, trying to gather all of what we would need to make the decisions, to look at it, some type of temporary suspension. I'd like our Public Works to figure out if there are some other options between now and then, to the extent we can. Hopefully, we'll get through hurricane season. We got another month or so there.
And we just really need dry, because even our rainy season, there was standing water in front of that intersection at Summer Lake and Reams. And it's if you look where the development is happening, the new development where they clear cut right before Ian, my hope was, and I think we discussed it back then, when they start retaining, we may be in a better position here, and we're not, we're worse.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just really need to look at the way they're retaining. We didn't have anywhere to pump water. People were outraged because they saw a pump that wasn't plugged into anything, and Public Works said, we have nowhere to pump to.
Okay. So Public Works should continue their efforts to try to mitigate the water crossing the roadway to the extent they can, do the things that they do. We'll get to it as quickly as we can. January 7th. To the other commissioners, Commissioner Bonilla, Commissioner Scott, I note that you press your button if you have something. Otherwise, I'm going to try to move to this next item quickly.
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Public Works. One question. So in this newsletter to the public, it says, the project will be designed in general accordance with the Reams roadway conceptual analysis completed in 2018. So the RSA was already completed. The construction plans are scheduled to be completed in early 2022. We're now in 2024. Are those construction plans already completed?
Those plans are approximately 90% complete for Reams Road. There was a number of issues that had come up, some design-related issues, some things related with the one box culvert crossing location. We had to do some additional muck analysis. And then there's a plethora of utilities that are in that roadway alignment, as well as including Orange County Utilities, and then Duke Energy, as well as the Central Florida Tourist Oversight District, which is, we have to coordinate with them as well. So there's a number of components that had come up.
Oh, they're waiting on us, so.
So, okay, so there was just some issues that came up that's been delaying it?
Yeah, that are part of the being able to get to the final plans to where we can move forward with final acquisition and then get to construction.
Okay, but it started, this is April 2020. The construction plans, all that design work started when?
The construction plan contract was executed in, I think, April 2020.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Scott.
First, Commissioner Wilson, you got what you were looking for, basically a work session or a scheduled work session, correct?
Absolutely, I think that we need to be able to lay out what are the biggest issues and have some board direction on what we can try to expedite and how we keep people safe, whether that, I mean, I think putting a pause in place, a moratorium or I won't say moratorium, but a pause till we can get some solution will at the very least add a level of safety for the people that are living there right now. I think ultimately I don't have answers yet about why some of these sites that have been cleared where they've added what's supposed to be on-site storage aren't retaining on-site, and it's continuing to exacerbate the issue. So, but yes, I want to see us address the potential for whatever we can do to decrease the amount of impacts to the wetlands and additional construction traffic in this very dangerous roadway as soon as we can.
Okay, and Joe, I'm going to have a question for you in just a moment. So, Commissioner, just so I understand, we're going to have a work session to discuss, obviously, solutions for the infrastructure to prevent flooding, but in that, you would also like a moratorium, right?
In the moratorium.
Okay.
I think the goal is to make sure that if we establish a pause on construction activity, that we're doing it with an end point in mind, because that's how you legally are able to do something like that. And we don't know what that end point might be because of some of the questions right now of the timeline about, whether or not Duke is going to be able to resolve their easement. And as frustrated as I am about a date that would be a completion date, that is not happening right now. So we just have got to get back to knowing for certain what that end date's going to look like and the improvements. And in the meantime, what can we do to make sure that we're not exacerbating the problem and we're keeping people safe?
Hey,
So
Commissioner,
I have-
maybe I can help out too. So one of the outcomes of the work session will be board direction to go ahead and advertise the public hearing. A moratorium has to be set
Right.
by an ordinance. And so like your normal process, you have that work session, define those terms that the commissioner, because there's some legal terms that have to be satisfied. And so the next step would be then the public hearing that would establish the moratorium. So that's why that sequence is in that way.
No, I'm clear on the process. Joe, I'm gonna have my question in like 2 seconds. Commissioner, and it's not for you to answer now, I just want you to kind of think of it as you craft your presentation or future presentations, is like, I'm reluctant to do a moratorium because, you know, that would result in delays and increased costs, not only on those projects, but also on the county. When you delay construction, costs, the longer you delay it, the higher the cost, not just to those people who are done, but also us.
We are making the same point. I want to know what the delay was.
So,
What happened?
I guess my question to you, and if you can't answer it right now, that's fine, you can answer it later, is could you accomplish addressing the concerns that Commissioner has shared reference to flooding without doing a moratorium, or as you craft your message? I mean, that she's wanting, hey, I want a moratorium, I want a work session. Could you have the work session, and if we move forward, maybe we are able to explore some options to address the flooding without stopping all the construction stuff that's happening over there?
That's hard to say, Commissioner. I think there needs to be some analysis at looking at what's going on in the basin. We understand some of the things going on in the basin, but as far as some of the concerns with the road flooding, I'd want to have some additional evaluations and analysis.
So when you do that, because I mean, the primary focus is to do it with a moratorium in mind. I'm just asking, as you craft that, do it without a moratorium. Both options. Am I making sense?
Let me jump in.
Yeah.
The goal between now and the work session is to gather all of the data that might justify a temporary suspension, or what have you, and what that end date would look like and what those ramifications would be. They've got to gather that information. That's why we can't really make the decision today. But, you know, our desire is to make it on that January 7th, let them do the fact finding, gather the information, brief us accordingly, so that we can make an informed decision. That's kind of what we're trying to get to.
So I'm good at the process of
Yeah,
saying,
and
if we can meet your concerns without having to
Well,
do
and I
a
want to
moratorium.
express something I think is really important in the cost, I think, analysis. If you saw the efforts that this team put in, the cost that it took to try to stop what we were seeing out there, it is potentially very well worth our future investment, our existing investments, to figure this out before we allow any more chunks missing out of the wetland, before we do any more big rock trucks on that road.
I get you.
That's a higher cost. And by the way, cost of life is the highest.
Right, I
So
understand.
anything I can do to prevent any type of danger out there is number one.
I'm with
And
you.
then after that, it has not been easy or cheap to try to figure out how to get through these last two big storm seasons. So I just want you to know, their efforts were, you know, above and beyond. We communicated all the time during this, and even the day right after Milton, I was like, did we do it? I think we did it. And it was passable, but it was going up and going up and going up and going up. And then, you know, to hear from residents that said, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going by these man-made retention that is supposed to be trapping this here, and it's not doing it.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Uribe.
I just had a quick question. Excuse me. When we're talking about an area, you're very specific to, got it, okay, because I was there, I went by there last week, and it was clearly after Milton, and it was still, okay. And I mean, and not defending Joe or anything, but we have something very similar in Rio Pinar, you know? It is almost like twins. And I do want to commend the staff for before Milton doing their best to get everything lowered. I know for us, we were able to add a retention pond to help after Ian to give another break on where the water's going, and then we're having a full study, so.
Well, I think, and they'll be able to present some of this stuff. I know we had a chance to sit down for a long time yesterday and look at some of the things that they have been working on that are designed to help future. But between now and then, it's going to be some time, and what can we do to make sure we're not making it worse or more dangerous? And that's really where this ask lies.
Okay, I think you have the consensus, at least at this point, to do the fact finding and come back on the 7th. We'll work through that. We're going to move forward then on